Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, in today's class, we are just going to look at the atomic structure of isotopes. So we are focused on knowing how isotopes exist. We need to understand that when you look at oxygen doesn't exist alone as an oxygen alone. There are also other types of oxygen which are a little bit slightly in their nature. So these types of atoms which are a bit slightly in terms of the nucleon number, these atoms or elements are known as isotopes. But that's not the definition of what isotopes are. Instead, I'm going to explain more what isotopes are and what you need to know. So if you look at last time's class, we simply talked about the Bohr model. So when you talk about the Bohr model, this is the model which we try to explain that an atom is made up of a centrally located nucleus, and this centrally located nucleus, it contains two important particles, and these two important particles are the nucleon and the neutrons and the protons. So in this particular diagram, if you look at it, you can look at the centrally located nucleus, which is having the proton and also the neutron. The orange part there, it is just showing the centrally located nucleus, which is made up of the proton and also the neutrons. So the proton and the neutron, it is where mostly the mass of the atom lies, because we know that the proton and the neutron, they have what we are calling the mass. As a result, the mass depends on the nucleons, which is the neutron and the protons. Then we are having some lights like moving structures. So here I'm just trying to demonstrate some electrons that are moving along what we are calling the shells, but we are not considering this because we learned it last time. So let's quickly look at something that is a bit different, and this thing is what we are just simply talking about, which are the isotopes. So basically, I'm just going to explain the structures of isotopes, what they are, and how you can know that these are isotopes. So when we go in detail, we need to understand one thing which I just mentioned, and this is the nucleons. So when you talk of the nucleon is made up of two important particles, and these two important particles are the proton and the neutron. So these nucleon are the ones that determine what we said, the mass of an atom. So the mass of an atom is much concentrated on the nucleons. And let me repeat once again, the nucleons of an atom are just the protons and the neutron. And these two guys, they are the ones that make up the nucleons. So these nucleons are the ones that determine the mass. As a result, when you add proton and neutrons, you are going to have the mass number or the nucleon number. But that is just important in the next stage, where I'll explain the differences between isotopes. So you need to understand that each element has a unique number of protons. So in short, the atomic number of every element, every atom in the universe is unique. For example, if you talk about the atomic number of carbon, it will surely be what? It will surely be 6. No other atom has an atomic number which is 6. This also simply means that all the isotopes that belongs to carbon, they have this single number which is 6, and this number is what we are calling the atomic number. So in short, there is no other atom in the universe there is no other element in the universe that has 6 apart from carbon and its isotopes. All right, so one thing that we also need to understand is that these atoms, like we have said, each atom has only one specific atomic number, but the difference comes in when we try to consider the total number of nucleons. So when we say the total number of nucleons, we are simply talking about the what? The protons and the nucleons. The protons and the what? And the neutrons. So the protons and the neutrons are the ones that are making up the what? The nucleons. Now, the difference which we are talking about, this difference comes in not because of the protons but because of the neutrons. I'm repeating that. The difference in terms of the nucleon number, or in terms of the total number of nucleon, is as a result of the neutrons and not the protons. Why? Because we need to understand that when you talk about the atomic number, the atomic number is always unique and constant. Is always unique and what? And constant. But the problem here is only in terms of the protons. So if you look at my structure on my right hand side, you can understand that it's the same thing which I've already stated. There are some electrons that are moving around the centrally located nucleus, and these electrons, they are having a force of attraction, okay, with the other particles, which are the what? The protons. Okay, so there is that force of attraction. That's why you can see the electrons are moving, and also the nucleus is a bit having some reactions there. So if let's say I pick blue to be my protons, then yellow to be my neutrons. So you need to understand that blue will remain the way it is. It will never change. But the neutrons are the ones that can change. Okay, let's move on and look at what we need to understand. So this variety of elements whereby there is a difference in terms of the nucleon number, which is also known as the mass number, are what are called the isotope. So the isotope, they are only different in terms of mass number, and what? And the neutron number. So two things are the ones that differ in terms of isotopes: the mass number and also the neutron number. So therefore, when you talk of the isotope of an element, they have the same number of protons, like I've already explained, but differ in the number of neutrons. So in most cases, like I told your friend, I said most of the time when I'm explaining, you find that whatever I'll explain, maybe it's something that is ahead of what I'm simply teaching. Okay, I don't know you guys if there is any questions so far. Do we have any questions before I move on? Any question, guys? Any questions? Let's be open. Let's feel free to ask questions. Any questions? Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Are you guys able to get me or not? Are you guys able to get me or not? You can get me? Okay, so let's quickly move on and look at something else. So we are still on the isotope. So when you talk of the atomic structure of an isotope is just described with the help of the chemical symbol. So it's normally done by the help of the chemical symbol, the atomic number of the element, and also the mass number of an element. Those are the three things that you consider when you are trying to write the structure of an isotope. So for example, we can say that there are three non-naturally occurring isotopes of what? Of hydrogen. So there are three types of isotopes which we can talk about when we talk about hydrogen. So the first one is the protium, which is the most common. Okay, the first one is the protium, which is the most common type of hydrogen isotope. Then we have the deuterium, and then the last one, it is the tritium. All these are isotopes of hydrogen. All these are isotopes of hydrogen. But the only difference in terms of their nature is that protium has no nucleon, deuterium has one neutron, and then tritium has what? Has two neutrons. But the protons are just the same. So the structure of this isotope I illustrated below, so we can consider that diagram which I've shown. Yes. The what? There are three types of isotope. There are three types of isotopes of hydrogen. There is protium, deuterium, and the tritium. When you talk of protium, protium is the most common. This one is the most common. Okay, this one is the most common, the protium. And when you talk of protium, it is this one here. So this one is protium. Protium has one proton but no nucleon. If you find that here, there is no nucleon in neutron, sorry. So when you talk of protium, it has no neutron, but there is one proton which you can find there. Then when you talk of deuterium, it is only having what? One proton and one neutron. One proton and one neutron. Then tritium, it has two neutrons and one proton. So if you look carefully, you can easily understand that when you talk of these three isotopes, the number of proton which is down there, it is always constant. The number of proton which is down there, it is always what? It is always constant. So that's what we can say. Okay. Any question? Any question, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. All right, let's move on. So that's the structure of isotopes of hydrogen. So the isotope of an element vary in terms of stability. So the elements of isotopes, normally they just vary in terms of stability. What am I trying to explain here? So you need to understand that some are more reactive, okay, some are more reactive, and then others are less reactive. That's why if you go in detail in chemistry, you need to understand that some isotope can undergo radiation and they can cause some few harm to human being. Then the half-life of isotope also differs. The half-life of isotopes also differs. So this will be explained more in chemistry. So, however, they generally have the similar chemical behavior. Why is it that they have the similar chemical behavior? It's because we know that the number of proton is equal to the number of what? Of of electrons. So the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons, and we know that if you look at the guy who is moving around, I think all of us, can we see the pinky particle which is moving around? Can we see a pinky guy?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at the pinky guy, on the first atom of hydrogen, there is only one pinky guy, which is the electron. The electron, it is moving around the what? The nucleus. And remember the region where it is found. So next time we have our biology class, I'm not going to go and do chemical bonding. Instead, I'm going to look at the MCQ, because biology, you can know notes, but if you are not going through multiple choice, you know Jesus class. So one thing that I'll do is actually that's how we work as the academy, is that we teach you the notes like that. Then after the notes, we also focus on the exam part. So that's how we normally operate. So if you look at the electron which is moving around there, so this electron is the same. It's one there, one there, one. This is because if you look at the proton, it is also constant, and we know that the number of proton is equal to the number of electrons. Okay, this is the reason why the chemical behavior of isotope is just almost the same. Yeah, just that's the explanation I can give on that particular. Okay, we can move. Let's quickly look at the last part of my discussion today. So in this last part, I'm just going to pick some atomic structure of some elements. So here I'm just focusing on much important elements in biology. Biology is not like chemistry. So when you talk of atomic structure, we are just brief. We don't go in detail. So the atomic structure of some elements in biology, automatically we have 25 important biology elements. Remember that, guys. I hope you guys can remember that. We discussed it in the first class we had. We have about 25 important biological elements. But out of 25, we have 3 more important, most common ones: hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon. And I said, when you talk of the content of most molecules in your body, they have carbon and hydrogen. Then for some, they have what? Nitrogen. For example, if you look at the lipids, they only have carbon and hydrogen. Most of them, they have carbon and hydrogen. If you look at carbohydrates, okay, you look at glucose, sucrose, fructose, starch, okay, if you look at them, okay, including chitin, if you look at them, all of them, they have one thing in common, and this thing is what? Carbon and hydrogen. Then we have other molecules in the body, such as the nucleic acids. Okay, these nucleic acid will come together, they'll make the diphosphate bond. They are going to form what we are going to call the DNA or RNA, which are the nucleic acids in your body. So when you look at those, they are having an additional component, which is the what? Nitrogen. If you look at proteins, they also have an additional element, which is just nitrogen. So most of these compounds in your body, they only have three important things: carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. But there are also other elements like copper, calcium, phosphorus, sulfur. Those guys, they just exist in small amounts. So in this particular lesson, I'll focus on the most common ones. So the structure of an element can be easily represented through the use of the what? Through the use of the total number of proton, which is known as the atomic number. Remember that. Also the electron, and also the neutrons. So the structure of a few atoms are illustrated below. The first one I'll talk about is just simply hydrogen. Very important. Remember, even water, the universal solvent, is having hydrogen. Okay, it's also having oxygen. When we go on the next topic, which will be water and its properties, we are going to look much how hydrogen and oxygen bond to form this important molecule, which is called water. But we are not interested in that. So if you look at hydrogen, the most abundant isotope of hydrogen on Earth is protium. Remember, protium has 1 proton and 1 neutron. Then the atomic number and the mass number of this isotope are 1 and 1 respectively. Okay, because it has no neutron. Then if you look at the structure of a hydrogen atom, you need to understand that for protium, we are considering protium, it only has 1 proton, 1 neutron, and no neutrons. Okay, I think that is clear.
1 neutron, 1 electron.
1 proton, 1 electron, no neutrons. Yeah. So if you look at the isotopes of hydrogen, like I mentioned earlier, there is protium, there is deuterium, there is tritium. So if you look at protium, it only has 1 proton, 1 electron, no neutron. Then if you look at deuterium, it has 1 neutron, 1 proton, 1 electron. If you look at tritium, it has 1 proton, 1 electron, 2 neutrons. So that's all about hydrogen. Do we have any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Before I explain carbon, I'm a bit fast because I want us to learn mathematics. Okay, carbon. So carbon has 2 stable isotopes. We have carbon 12 and carbon 13. Carbon has 2 isotopes, carbon 12 and carbon 13. So if you look at carbon 12, this is the most common type of isotope of carbon, and this one is normally forms 98.9% of the carbon in the universe. So these figures are very important for your exam. Then it contains 6 protons. It contains 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. So that's the structure of isotopes of carbon. So remember, the most common one is this one. Okay, this is the most common ones. Okay, so structure of carbon atom, you need to understand that the electrons are distributed into 2 shells. I'm interested in that. Are distributed into 2 shells, and the outermost shell has 4 electrons. I'm interested in this part. The outer shell has 4 electrons. This is the reason why carbon can only form 4 bonds. Carbon can form a maximum of 4 bonds. A maximum of 4 bonds. So I hope you guys have taken note of this, because this one is going to be found in some of the questions we are going to do. So the tetravalence of carbon enable it to form a variety of chemical bond with various elements. So yeah, I think this is just some term which you guys need to understand. Tetravalence means it has 4 electrons in its outermost shell, but I'm much interested in the maximum number of bonds which can be formed by carbon. That's why I've written that, because it's part of the MCQ. Okay, any questions, ladies and gentlemen, fathers and mothers, future wives and husbands? Any question? Any question? Okay, let's move on and look at something else. Please.
Sir, on the sir,
Yes.
this from the atmosphere for carbon happened.
I can't get you.
On carbon 12, I can only see 3 electrons in its outermost shell. What happened to it?
Oh, I think it's just the drawing. Thank you very much for that correction. It's just the drawing. Okay, thank you. Let's move on. So the other one we can talk about is oxygen. So when you talk of oxygen, there are 3 stable oxygen isotopes. So we have oxygen 18, we have oxygen 17, and oxygen 16. But oxygen 16 is the most abundant. Remember, I'm putting the most abundant, so you guys are supposed to know the most abundant isotope of each element. So these are just the isotopes of oxygen, and the same thing I explained about isotopes of carbon, isotope of hydrogen. It's the same thing in terms of their particles. So structures of oxygen atoms, since the atomic mass of this isotope is 8 and the mass number is 16, that simply means that oxygen has 8 protons, 8 neutrons, and also 8 electrons. So one other thing that you need to understand is the number of electrons in the outermost shell, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in the outermost shell, you need to understand that there are only 6 electrons in the outermost shell. This means that oxygen needs 2 electrons, okay. So this part I've explained here, it is an exam question. Okay, we can do the last guy, who is nitrogen. So if you look at nitrogen is the most abundant element in the atmosphere, and this one is very important in terms of the reproduction of plants and animals. When we talk of your DNA, when I talk about your genetic information in your body, I talk about DNA. So your DNA is something that you inherited from your parent, okay? How you look, that beautiful smile you have, it did not create itself. Those dimples, sometimes some have, some don't have. It's not something that you created on your own. It's something that was created biologically, okay? It's something that you inherited. Some of you are light in complexion. It's because maybe one of your parent is light, or maybe their parent, one of them was light, and then that was just being transferred to you in the blood, okay? This same applies to plants, and you need to understand that plants need nutrients for their survival. Okay, It is commonly found in amino acids. I think this has been explained. So when you talk of amino acid, you're just simply talking about proteins, okay? Because a group of amino acid will come together to form what we are calling the proteins. I think it has already been explained. And then it is also found in nucleotides. So nucleotides are the ones which will give the genetic material of an organism. So the genetic material of an organism, we're just talking about your DNA. Okay, so this can also allow me to tell you guys not to feel bad about how you look, not to feel bad about maybe how some features on your body are, because you need to understand that some certain things like your appearance, your characters, how you talk, how you present yourself to people, it's not because you chose it. Okay, yeah, there are things that we choose, but there are also things that we cannot choose, especially our appearance. So on the other side, I can encourage you guys not to laugh at someone at how they appear, at how they talk, or maybe they are short or they don't get old like me. Yeah, no matter how many years I might have, I still look almost the same as I was some years back. So yeah, okay, we move. Nitrogen has an atomic number of 7, which 5 of its electrons are in the outermost shell. So if you look at one reason when you talk of the valence number of nitrogen, it's a little bit different from other atoms. So this one, in the outermost shell, you have 5 electrons, but you cannot say that 5 is the atomic number, the valence of nitrogen. So the valence of nitrogen is 3, because nitrogen need 3 electrons for it to be stable. So nitrogen need 3 electrons for it to be stable. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it needs 3 electrons, which can be 1 there, it can be 2 there, 3 there, for it to be stable. I don't really like the drawings because we know that this is not the correct way of drawing atoms. Do we have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, fathers and mothers, parents and